Hi, this is Jamie Perkunis, and I wanted to show you some techniques to activating your hamstrings in yoga poses. So I oftentimes recommend engaging the hamstrings. I find that a lot of people who practice yoga might have tight hamstrings, or maybe even really open hamstrings, but their hamstrings tend to be weak, and they're not aware of how to use them in a yoga pose. So the first pose I'm going to show you is going to be just bridge pose, what we're used to in bridge pose. So I have a blanket here, and I'm right at the edge of my yoga mat. And my blanket is on my cork floor, so it has an ability to move. And I'm also going to grab a block, too, to place underneath my hips, so I can tell if my hips lower when I'm trying to pull my feet back. So just a couple warnings for this particular pose. One is if you're concerned about your hamstrings cramping, it's best to not let your feet move out as far, and to also keep your feet from pulling too far underneath you. You'll guarantee to cramp your hamstrings. It is normal in the beginning to feel like your hamstrings are on the verge of cramping, which is common when strengthening them, especially we're basically taking a hamstring across its full ability to contract. So the hamstring muscle does knee flexion and also does hip extension, which from bridge pose is lifting the hips up. So what you'll do is you'll rest on your mat, and your feet are going to be off the mat, and there's going to be some space between your hips and the blanket where your feet are going to be on. And then you're going to lift your bottom up and place the block. I would start on a low setting, but you could, as this gets a little easier, maybe raise it up to the medium setting. What I like to do in this pose in particular, there's a lot of misconception that you need to bring your heels so that you can touch them. That is necessary for a certain pose, but for this one I would not recommend that. I want you so you can't touch your heels. So your feet are a little bit beyond your knees. And what you'll do is lift your bottom up. I also like to lift the tops of the feet up because that helps me engage a little bit more of my hamstrings. So you're going to lift up here, and then just work with straightening your legs out without letting your hips drop. This is not nearly as challenging as when you try to pull your heels back. So keep pressing your heels down as you pull them back towards you. And this is about where the hamstrings will want to cramp. So again, pushing out, nice and controlled, keeping the hips up. Make sure you're breathing here, usually exhaling on the effort, so exhale, pull your heels back slowly. Try not to let your hips drop. Another option too is if this is way too much, is to bring your feet out as far as you can, then lower your bottom, keep your heels pressing down as you pull your feet back. And lifting out, slowly letting the legs come out. Lower the hips down, and then slowly bring your heels back. When coming out of this, lift your bottom up, remove the block, lower your bottom, roll over onto your side. You should probably feel your hamstrings right about now. Another option too is to do a hamstring stretch afterwards. I want to show you one more way to activate your hamstrings in a common yoga pose, which I'm just going to generally call warrior stance. So this is a technique that can be done for crescent warrior, warrior one, warrior two, side angle pose, and even triangle pose. So for this one, same technique, although I recommend that you may be a little bit closer to the wall, so that if your foot slides all the way out, you don't go into the splits. So when I teach this in class, a lot of times I teach it with the blanket just a few inches away from the wall. So what you'll do is you'll take a wide stance with your front foot on the blanket and back foot back. And then really work here on coming into your deep stance without letting the foot slide out. So instead, keep the heel pulling back, and you can here feel your hamstring engaging. If your foot does slide out, instead of trying to pull it back from this position, just slowly wiggle your back foot in, maybe use the wall, and come on out. So for this one, again, really working on feeling the back of the leg engage. So I'll just show you from this side. Same thing, Really come into a deep stance, pull your heel back, see if you can feel your hamstring engage. So in this pose, a lot of times the quads will want to do all the work. So in here we're trying to co-contract the quads with the hamstrings. So doing this practice of finding your hamstring strength, if you have really open hamstrings like myself when I started yoga, it actually tightened my hamstrings up. However, that it helped improve my back pain. It also allowed my yoga poses to be a lot stronger, and it really helped my back bones quite a bit. Thank you for watching, and hope to see you soon. Namaste.